This is the Impressions Exchange Podcast. Where all topics impacting the graphic imaging and printing industry are addressed via in-depth news coverage, analysis, and timely interviews.
Hi, I'm Denise Gustavson, the Editorial Director for NAPCO Media, and the guest host for this special Printing Impressions podcast series in celebration of Women's History Month, highlighting women in the printing industry. Now, during this series, I'll have the opportunity to talk with women from all segments of the print industry about their experiences and their journey as a woman in printing. So today, it's my pleasure to welcome Tammy Caserta. She's Director of Digital Mailing Services and Wide Format with ThinkPad Patented. So Tammy, welcome.
Thank you.
So can you do me a favor and just tell me a little bit about yourself and your current company and what your role is?
I am a mother of 3 and a grandmother of 6, soon to be 7 in June. So I'm pretty excited about that. I have been in the print mail industry for 28 years. I started out as a shipping clerk in a printing company, and then moved into data processing for their mailing department, and then eventually moved into running their mailing department. And then I moved to a different company, which is the company I'm with now. So I've been here for going on 19 years, I think. I'll be 19 years in April. So
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I have started out running their mailing department, and then picked up the digital department in 2014, I think, and then just added wide format a couple of years ago. So wide format is probably the one area I'm not as familiar with as I am mailing and digital. Obviously, mailing is my biggest background, and then digital printing would definitely be number 2. So I have been involved in multiple industry associations, our local postal customer council, and what used to be the Mailing and Fulfillment Services Association. And I was pretty involved in that association, but that is probably it, I guess, as far as industry. And so I'm more a mailer than I am a printer, but digital printing has definitely pushed me into the printing aspect of the job.
Yes, definitely. So, my question is, how did you get started? I mean, is this something that you coming out of school, you said, this is what I wanted to do? How did you get started? You said you've been in the industry 28 years?
Right. I actually started out in the industry, and it wasn't something that I always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years, and then needed a job. And so one of my very good friends, her husband owned a printing company. They had a need for a shipping clerk, and so they hired me. Not a lot of places will give someone a chance.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't worked in 15 years, but they did, and I did everything I could to be as good at my job as I could be.
So it got you in early, and you kind of fell into it. It's kind of what I'm hearing in a way.
Yeah. I didn't really, I wasn't even looking for a job just yet. I was just trying to get a grip on what I needed to do in my world, basically. Mm-hmm. And so the job came up, and it was really an easy job for me to learn something to do, and just to get myself accustomed to being a working mom. Mm-hmm. So I did that for probably maybe 6 months or so. And then they needed somebody in their data processing department because they had somebody had quit or retired or something. I can't remember right now, but they moved on to a different career, basically. And mm-hmm. So they needed somebody. So they asked me if I wanted the job. So that moved me into a different position and certainly and that involved me in the mailing world. So that's when I got started in that department, in that area. I did everything I could to learn about mailing. I think my big claim to fame is I read the entire DMM, which not a lot of people ever do.
So that was your nighttime reading. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I read it in between ball practices, and had to drop a kid off at practice and wait, or whatever it happened to be. If I was sitting out in the car waiting, I was reading. And I had time off. Obviously I had some time at my job to do some reading too, but I tried to learn as much as I could about mailing, since that was going to be my new job, and I knew absolutely nothing about mailing, and I certainly didn't know anything about data processing or what it was or what it meant or anything. So it was a huge learn for me. I had a lot to learn, but I did everything I could to learn what I needed to learn so I could do the job.
Yeah. So what was it about the job that made it interesting to you?
Well, I guess because it was something new every day. It wasn't the same. It wasn't monotonous. So I didn't do the same, it was basically the same tasks every day, but it was different, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
No two customers' data files are the same. And even if you have one customer they still have different data files no matter what. So that kind of kept me learning, and it kept me kind of on my toes. So I never got bored. And I really actually enjoy mailing. I know lots of people don't, and lots of people hate all those rules and regulations, but I really jumped in with both feet and learned, like I said, I learned everything I needed to learn to be able to do my job. And didn't want to have to rely on asking other people. I wanted to learn myself. So
I completely understand that, because I even know, throughout my life, even my parents used to kid me, and I'd always want to do stuff myself, and I'd go and I'm like, I want to do this myself because I wanted to learn how to do it and actually gain that kind of knowledge and skills. So I can understand that, from a personal perspective.
there's a lot to learn, and I did not, I didn't focus so much on the printing side, because everything I did with finished pieces. So I felt like that was where I needed to focus, not necessarily what kind of paper it was, and was it a work and turn or a work and flop. I mean, I had absolutely clues about what those terminology, what they were, what they meant. But I've definitely gotten better over the years. But in the beginning, I just needed to learn about mailing. I needed to understand it. So that took a lot. That was a lot of learning.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I know for me, mailing is one of those things that I know it happens. I know some of the basis, but to get into the nitty gritty, I would be completely lost.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, who would you say helped you the most to get where you are today? Is there a particular person or a couple of people that helped you? I mean, obviously you've learned a lot on your own through, your own concerted efforts to educate yourself on the job and what's required. But was there anybody that really helped you along the way?
Well, I guess, in the beginning, when you have 3 little kids and you're a single mom, I relied on my parents a lot. And so, they probably helped me the most in the beginning, just to be able to be good at my job, because they helped me with my kids. So
Yeah.
that was a big help. And certainly the people who gave me a chance, the first company I worked at was Hammer Graphics, and they gave me an opportunity for sure, because when you don't work for 15 years, there's not a lot of places that would give you the opportunity, to begin. And then as the more I learned, you learn from industry people. So certainly other people in my industry postal people and non-postal people, anybody in the industry, if you get a chance to learn from them. Though, belonging to industries, industry associations, and being able to participate in the industry associations is a big deal. And I think that's where I probably really then started to learn. You can learn so much by reading a book and by doing stuff every day. But once I started running the department and I became the director, I, could go to industry things and association meetings, things like that. And I really started to learn a whole lot more just from other people. How do you do this? How do you do that? That kind of thing, just to learn, just kind of soak up what other people know.
Yeah, and that peer-to-peer learning, I think, is so essential across the industry as a whole, because that's where you hear, some of the down and dirty stories, how they learned, how they got to where they are, and what's helped them, run their departments or manage what they're doing.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, looking at, you've already mentioned you're a single mom, you had kids, you're coming into the workforce after 15 years of being out of the workforce. Those are some really big challenges that you've had to overcome. And a lot of that, I'm guessing, is because you are a woman as well. So, how has that impacted you?
I think that your direct supervisors, the person that you report to, can kind of make or break you when you're a female. So in my first job, I eventually had a supervisor, and he wasn't necessarily, I don't know if I want to say easy to please or easy to work with, but he definitely was not fond of women, I don't think, being in any kind of a management role. Because they, when they put me in a management role, I hadn't been there 10 years yet. And probably there maybe, I don't know, maybe 8 years or so. And when they put you in that role, it's like they don't teach you anything. And you only learn if you make a mistake. Well, you should have known that. You were, you're the director of the department. You should know you're not allowed to do that. Well, how am I going to know I'm not allowed to do it
if nobody's ever told me before, or,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But when I started working at the company I'm with now at Think Patented, the owner of the company is who I reported to, and he gave me a lot of opportunities and respected everything that I knew, everything that I did. And so I think moving companies, and I was definitely a lone female in a world full of men, but honestly, I was raised with 4 brothers, so I'm kind of used to that.
Oh, that certainly helps.
And so, yeah, so I can hold my own. But he gave me, the owner of the company at that time gave me a lot of opportunities, gave me the opportunities to go to association meetings and conferences and to learn from other people and to really, but you can see that, you can see the difference. But I think once you know your job and you know what you do really well, I think you earn respect from everyone, male or female. I don't think it matters. So
yeah, at that point, it's really it's the work that you're doing, it's the job that you're doing that's giving you the respect, not necessarily what your gender is.
Yeah, so I would say, in the beginning, yeah, there were definitely some challenges. And a lot of times being the only female and walking into a room full of men and you're late because your cab got stuck in traffic. You walk in and everybody looks at you like, yep, women are always late to meetings. They're never on time. And I'm like, my cab was late. It really isn't my fault that I'm here late. I just, but you do get some people who seem to bring that subject up and some people who ignore the fact that you're the only female in a room full of men. I don't even think twice about it now, because most of the time I am the only female in a room full of men, and it really doesn't bother me.
Which is good. And, it shows how strong of a woman you are as well. But I know for some women, that's a tough thing. How do you make your voice heard when other people are, they want to dismiss you, they want to drown you out, especially being that only woman in the room. How do what does it take to have that strength and that conviction?
I think number one, you need to know what you're talking about. And I think you need to know, and if you say something, you better make it happen. So I think that being able to know what you're talking about and then do what you say you're going to do makes all the difference in the world. I think that's what earns you your, I think sometimes everyone has to sort of earn their stripes, whether you're a male or a female. But like you said, I think sometimes it is harder when you're a female because they tend to want to listen to someone else more so. But I think just knowing your stuff and knowing what you're saying and being confident, don't just say, well, I think, you can't just think, you have to know, and you have to say it like you know it. And I remember one story when I first started working here. There is a sales rep, and he's been here the longest. He's everybody teases him and says he's been here longer than the furniture. But he had a lot of respect at that company, and I had a lot of respect for him. But he would come back and he would tell me where his job was at in the shop, and that I should do this and that I should do that, and this is when I could get it on. And so one day he's tall. He's like 6'4", 6'5", and I'm 5'1". And so I just climbed up on a stack of skids and I looked him in the eye and I said, I know exactly where your job is. This is where it is. This is what time I'm going to start it. Can't start it yet. They got to get a little ahead. Once we have enough to set up, we'll set the line up and then we'll get started on the job. It will be done by tomorrow. You don't have to worry about it. And I said it all in one great big huge long sentence, and I was respectful. And he said, well, all right. And he turned around and walked away. So, I just, like I said, I think you just have to. And then after that, he never ever questioned. He never ever questioned that, did I know where his job was? Or, after that, it was like, when's my job going to be done? And then I would tell him, and then he'd be fine with that. So I think you just have to, whatever it is you're going to do, say you're going to do, you got to make it happen.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I would have loved to have seen you up on those skids, looking him in the eye. That's a great image.
I thought he was going to just absolutely fall over when I did that.
Now, I mean, you've been a working mom now for a while, that tends to be a stereotype. How do you approach that? I mean, is that something that was difficult for you? Because I mean, you were juggling kids and, your parents were helping you, how did that all work?
I think it's probably harder for women who don't have a support group, and
Definitely.
If you have a support group, I think it makes it easier. I think that the biggest struggle is, at least I think the biggest struggle for me was probably, I kind of felt guilty. I mean, I was a stay-at-home mom, so I did everything. I did all the volunteering. I did, everything I could do, I did.
Went on all the field trips, did all the stuff.
Right. And so I think that for me anyway, and I can't speak for, some women have always been working. And I applaud them for that, for sure. Because I think when your kids are little, I enjoyed being home with them. And I feel for other women who can't do that. but it sure is a life-changing adjustment. And I think the guilt was the hardest part. And even though it was my parents that were helping me, I felt horrible when my mom or my dad got to see something and I didn't get to see it.
Yeah.
You know, so I think for me, that was the hard part. I can't speak for everybody, but I wanted to be there and do everything, and you can't when you have to work. You can't be there and you can't do everything, but you just have to try to, I think the things that you can do and the things that you can be there for, you got to make sure it's special enough that the kids remember that part.
And that they know that you're there. When you are there, you're there 100%.
Right.
You know, you're not being pulled into other directions, you know, showing them that, you know, oh, I might be here physically, but my mind is thinking about 15 other things that are going on, but really being with them.
Yeah, you got to make sure you see every move they make. If they're on a basketball court, Mom, did you see me do this? Did you see me do that? And you got to make sure, yep, I did see you do that. And when I started as a single mom, smartphones weren't very smart just yet.
Yeah.
So that was a little easier, I think, because I didn't have that temptation to check my email or check, answer the phone when it rang. So that made a difference. So now I know when I'm with my kids or when I'm with my grandchildren, my phone stays in my purse on vibrate. I don't answer it. I don't, unless it's a hospital calling me saying somebody's somewhere, then I'm probably not going to answer it. I just think your full attention needs to be there. And I think does make it easier. But it certainly, doesn't take away all the guilt, but it does make you feel a little better when you can at least be there 100% when you are there.
Exactly. And honestly, like you said, when you did this, when you started out, probably back with flip phones, and it was such a different way than how we've worked with, smartphones now. I can only imagine, if someone's, a woman coming back to the workforce like you nowadays, I can only imagine that it would be even more difficult just because of the access and the technology in a way.
Right. It's like you're never you're always at someone's beck and call.
Yeah.
And now, and it wasn't then. And I think I'm kind of grateful for that. But I think you just still have to learn how to, it's hard for women, I think, to shut it off and pay attention, because they probably feel like if they don't answer the phone, or if they don't check their email, somebody's going to think they're slacking on their job. But it's hard to do, but I think it's necessary. I feel like it's necessary.
Yeah, we have to find, I think everybody needs to find that work-life balance and what really works, because family is very important. And that's something that, for a while, I think that was forgotten in some cases.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, just in talking about women in general, what do you see as like unique characteristics or perspectives or things that women bring to the workforce that wouldn't be there if a woman wasn't there?
I think women are better multitaskers. We can handle more at one time, which again, that's either a positive. It can also be a negative.
Yeah.
But, as a positive, I think women are better at that. I think sometimes I think women are better at managing more people and more, I guess, I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this, but maybe better at managing people that are in multiple areas. I guess I manage 3 departments, and I think most of the people here only manage 1. And so I think women are better at stuff like that. You can figure out how to get everything organized. And when it comes to production anyway, because that's all I've ever really other than the data processing, production's all I have ever done. So, I think trying to manage all that and sort of stack it all up inside your head and go, okay, I have to look at the bigger picture here. How long is it going to take this job to get done and that job to get done? So I think that's where maybe women are probably better because they can see the bigger picture. I see that this is not just my world. This has to include everybody else's world to be able to make this a good end result for our client, because the clients, in theory, clients are the ones who write your paycheck, right? Everything. So you have to see everything in a bigger way rather than just, well, I only have this much to do, so I don't really care about what has to happen elsewhere. So I think women see a bigger picture better and definitely multitask better for sure. And I think maybe patience. Women tend to have more patience than what maybe men do. At least most men that I've been exposed to.
I have to agree with that. And also, I think there's a certain degree of nurturing that I think women have that I think helps even when managing people and staffs and teams.
Yeah, I agree.
Because that's just something that comes so naturally to a woman. Not that I'm saying men can't be nurturing, they can, but it seems to be a little bit more natural for the role of a woman.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So what advice would you give to young women that were considering entering the printing industry today?
I think having a visual is always better for anyone who's considering anything. So if you can go and watch and just observe and see what goes on in a printing company, when people think of a printing company, they just think of people putting ink on paper. And that's not what printing companies are today. I suppose there still are maybe some printing companies out there that are just ink on paper, but certainly not most of the ones that I'm familiar with. And
the progressive ones, the ones that are growing, definitely are doing more than just ink on paper.
Exactly. So I think just going, and if you have a chance to do an apprenticeship at a printing company, at a company like ours, we offer apprenticeships and we're looking for people because we do so much here and there are so many different areas that people could learn. So I think as they're going to school and trying to decide, and if they can't decide what they want to do, because not everybody's necessarily cut out for a 4-year college. And if that's not something that you're interested in, if you're really interested in things that you don't know if you're interested in them yet or not, then visit a printing company. See what they have to do. See if they offer an apprenticeship program. Because if they do, you get to learn all about the whole entire company from when a job comes in the door until a job goes out the door. So you get a chance to learn. And if you don't like it, then move on to something else. But maybe you certainly haven't wasted a couple of months of your time because you didn't know what you were going to do to begin with anyway.
Yeah, you're getting the experience and you're testing the waters to see what really makes a fit for you.
Yeah. So I think that's the best way, probably the best way to, if they're really considering a career in printing, I think they should try to find an apprenticeship program, or they should at least just go for a couple days. All you have to do is probably check with an HR department or an owner of a printing company. If it's a small company, check with the owners and say, I'm thinking about it, but I don't know if this is what I want to do. Can I come see what you do?
Mm-hmm.
I think most companies would be willing to let someone come see what they do for a day.
Definitely. Because I mean, it's hiring some people right now it's been tough in the printing industry, but I think it's even more challenging now. And to have someone express an interest in learning, I think that goes a long way in saying, the open-mindedness too of the candidate.
Right. If you're someone who's good with their hands and you understand how machinery works,
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of women who are better on machinery than a lot of men are,
Mm-hmm.
only because they just have that natural talent. You got that natural talent, you might as well put it to use somewhere. And a lot of printing companies have kind of an older demographic as far as the people that are working there. And it's hard to find people with skills when you're trying to hire anyway.
Yeah.
It's hard to find people with the skill. And when you find somebody who's willing to teach you a skill and pay you while you learn the skill, there's something to be said for that, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So Tammy, thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation with you, talking about, your experiences in the printing industry and the mailing industry, and how women fit. I think they're a really good fit in this industry.
I think so too. I think so too, without a doubt.
So thank you again for taking the time to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today for this episode of our special podcast series in celebration of Women's History Month. Be sure to check out the rest of the interviews and stories we'll be highlighting throughout the month of March.